anything that you think you need help with building a better mousetrap to do traffic counting, let us know. We have funds available. As an example, for this pool fund here, this one, Federal Highways kicked in $500,000 to this one. And FMCSA kicked in $200,000 for this pool fund. So we have large sources of money that we can put towards research projects. And because we're all about trying to build a better way of doing traffic counting. I should stand over here. So here's both of our names. I'm Stephen Jessberger, for those who don't know me, and Shu King is new to our office, but very experienced with traffic data processing. He's going to be speaking after I do. So with that, is there anything that you have questions on that you'd like answered before I get started? Because anything traffic data collection-wise, I came from a state where I worked for 15 years. I was the WIM guy there, and I did processing and installations of traffic counting devices, all kinds of different technologies. I'm a metrologist by trade. Before I was an engineer, so I'm all about measuring things. That's what metrology does. Not the meteorologist, which does weather. He's a metrologist who measures things. So I did that in the Air Force for 4 years. So, okay, and anybody who wants my card, I've got a stack of cards I can give you. What I want to do is give you the 2022 TMG update. It's on the web, and it's available right now, and so anybody can go there and download it. We are going to provide 2 hard copies to every state. We're planning on doing that, and so you'll have that. You can't take it to TSA, it's considered a lethal weapon. And so many pages. But no, seriously though, we did a serious slimming down of the TMG in 2022. Is much thinner. It's about 100 pages less. And we made some significant changes. You'll notice the 2 terms in there, and if people use the term ATR, I know what you mean, but there is some confusion because automatic traffic recorder, which is what ATR stands for, does mean portable device. Portable device is an ATR. So most people use the term ATR to mean permanent device, but I've been in some states and I hear the term ATR and some people mean it to be portable. So we have coined the term CCS for continuous count site. That's your permanent volume sites, and CVC, which is continuous vehicle class. So those 2 terms are used all throughout the traffic monitoring. Just to let you know. If you like to use the term ATR, go ahead and do it. There's no requirement. By the way, everything in the TMG, are they shalls or shoulds? Who knows that answer? Shalls or shoulds in the TMG?
Shall.
They're all shoulds. There's nothing you have to do in the TMG that you have to do. Nothing. Now, you better have a good reason for not doing it. I've seen people lose their jobs because they have not followed the TMG. It's happened 3 times in my career at Federal Highways, 17 years. So you better have a good reason why you're not following the TMG. There's, like Mark said, he was the original author of the 1985 version of the TMG, and it's got over 40 years of experience with it. So there's a lot of good reasons to do what has been done in there. So what's in there? Now it's not a trick question, this is good to know. What's in the HPMS field manual? Are they shalls or shoulds? They're all shalls, yes, they're all shalls. So when the HPMS field manuals says you shall be using the TMG, guess what? You better be using the TMG because it references the TMG in numerous different places. Okay, but that is a fundamental difference, okay? And if you find a shall in the TMG, let me know because I will definitely make sure it gets removed because we know there are no musts, there's no shalls in there, okay? Okay, so brand new chapters in there called Chapter 6. It's all about probe-based data. We understand this is something that agencies are having to deal with, so we made a brand new chapter just to deal with that. Okay, and along with that is the pool fund that we did. There's a bunch of updated appendices. We removed a couple that we couldn't make 508 compliant, but 508 compliance is for people who have some sort of visual acuity, they can't read, or maybe they're blind, and so this helps it read for them. So we have to make it so the traffic monitoring guide can be used by anybody who happens to have a hard time seeing or can't hear, or whatever the reason is. So everything is made 508 compliant. But it's please see the appendices. We went through a lot of work with those, and the agencies who have updated that information is also available there. So you use it. It's a lot of great examples of the best practices that agencies are using. And then there's many call-out areas. So it's something we added to the 2022 TMG if you need to have 6 traffic counting sites per factor group, that's in a what we call a call out, and those are in the traffic monitoring guide. It's brand new that we just added. Those things like 1 WIM per factor group, that's a call out as an example. Okay, and you need to, so it's recommended, it's not required, but it's recommended that when you go out and you do a class count, right? So at all of the samples and all the PAS and NHS routes where you're getting single unit and combination unit data where you have to do a class count, when you do that, it's a really good idea to, instead of just using that class count for single units and combination units, which are your trucks, also annualize for the 6 vehicle types that are in the HPMS vehicle summary table, which is motorcycles, passenger vehicles, light trucks, and buses. Annualize for those 6 vehicle types. Why? Well, if you think about your whole system and you're going out and doing all these class counts for 48 hours or longer, and now you would have, across your whole system, you'd have motorcycles, where they're traveling. And now when you go to vehicle miles traveled weight, which I'm hopefully Jackalope is now doing for you, you need to VMT weight your vehicle summary table that is in HPMS. That's a requirement. That's a shall in HPMS. Okay? You need to VMT weight your summary table. So if you have all the class counts and you're only annualizing for the trucks, you're missing out across your whole system on all your samples and NHS and PASS routes. When you do these class counts, you're missing out on the number of motorcycles on all those different segments. So you already have the data. It's just a matter of annualizing. So if Jackalope isn't doing it for you, you should be doing it in Jackalope. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes? No? Are we good on that? Okay. But I'm all about, let's not go out and count more sites. Let's take the existing data that we have and make it more useful. And this takes your data and makes it much more useful. If you did this across your system at all your samples where you're doing class counts, now you would have a motorcycle map in your state. You could do that. Because you'd have motorcycle travel all throughout your state. You'd have annualized for all of the segments that are in the samples, as an example. Okay, so that's what we're requesting in the traffic monitoring guide, is that agencies use their portable counts, class counts to annualize for those 6 vehicle types. Any questions on that? Where we use your vehicle summary table is very important to us in our office. It is an extremely valuable piece of information. When you report in HPMS, the vehicle summary table, it is used extensively at federal highways. You would believe how often it gets used. And we use it to do various tables. The VM1 table and the VM4 table use extensive use of your vehicle summary table that is in HPMS. Now, why are we asking and begging states to do this? Well, we're seeing there's large changes in your summary tables from year to year. When I say large changes, this is an example. Let's say a given state reports 1% motorcycles, and they go to 1.2% the next year. Is that a big change? Doesn't seem like it. But if you look at it dynamically you went from 1% to 1.2, that's a 20% change in motorcycles, right? Because you added 0.2% to it. That plays havoc with us when we do national tables, okay? And we have states that are changes up or down. I've seen states data go from 1% motorcycles in a given type of roadway to maybe 1.5%. It's 0.5% more, but that's a 50% increase in motorcycles. And then the next year, they'll go down to 0.8. And then the next year, it'll be 1.4. I'm like, really? What's the right answer here? Okay, if you VMT weight across your system, now you'll have a much more stable value, and it will not bounce around like that. Okay? So it's very important that you VMT weight your summary table. Those agencies that are not VMT weighting their summary table, we're going to come and knock on your door. We're going to say, hey, you need to do this. It's very important that you do this, okay? Because your other states are doing this, and you need to get with the program, okay? So, is Jackalope doing that for you? That's the hard question. Yes or no? Is Jackalope doing that for you?
We're a point-based system, so we don't typically calculate VMTs.
So how do agencies get their vehicle summary?
We give them a summary table of the data that's in there, but no miles.
Okay, so that would be a good
You
thing.
give the class so much.
You times the points by the number of miles in the segment and then you add them all up.
Is that what you do?
Yeah.
Does Jackalope do that for you? You do it outside this? Huh?
I do, it's a simple spreadsheet, it's not hard.
So maybe if you're not doing it like what Todd just mentioned for Utah, you need to do that, okay? Or maybe build something in Jackalope where somebody could load in 4 segments, maybe, produce that for you. Or maybe in your, the app that you're gonna do with ArcGIS, maybe, however you wanna do it, that needs to be done. That's really important to do that. So, and I understand if you don't have the segment lengths, how you have to do that.
Right.
That's really almost impossible to do. Okay, if anybody needs help with doing this, we have 4 videos that Patrick Zong has put together in our office that details how to do this. Okay, so there's 4 videos that shows you how to do it by county, if you're wondering how to do it. Okay, you need to, all agencies need to calibrate their sites every year. It's the easiest thing not to do and to save money on, but you're just shooting yourself in the foot. How long does it take to calibrate a class site? Anybody know? Permanent class site. Let's say 4 lanes. How long? Or less. If you use a laser gun, don't use radar, use laser guns, and all you have to do is just shoot a couple vehicles in each one of the lanes. That's all you need to do. It's just that easy. You can't spend, I was just in a state doing a briefing, and I said, how long does it take you to calibrate your class sites? And he said, 6 hours. I was like, wow. And you can take 6 hours. If you want to do the different vehicle types over time, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. But if you get the speed of the vehicle, and it's accurate, it's highly likely, about 95% of the time or more, that your axle class is correct, okay? Because if your spacings are right, which means that your speed's right, that means that when your speed's right, your spacings are right, and then therefore, if your class tree is correct with properly classifying, which is a big if, then that means that your classes are okay, all right?
It takes decades to calibrate a class tree.
It does take a long time. So that's another subject I'd be happy to discuss. If anybody needs assistance with what Todd just referred to, which is a great point that you're making, because that is exactly right. It took me about 8 months to do mine in Ohio, and I actually did ours that we did in Ohio. So what he's talking about is when you get a vehicle of a certain type, let's say, let's draw a class 9 vehicle. So if you got this vehicle going down the road, this is a typical class 9. Right? Let's say it's going down the road. And so the class tree says, okay, I've got a spacing here of 15.5 feet, right? And I've got 4.2 feet here, and I've got maybe 18 feet here, and I've got maybe 4.5 feet here, right? Let's say those are the spacings. When the class tree sees that spacing of that vehicle going down the road, it says, okay, it's got 5 axles on the vehicle, goes down to where there's 5 axles, and it looks, and if it's a class 7 vehicle with 5 axles, says, does this fit? If it doesn't, it keeps on going until it finds the right one that matches this spacing with all of these 4. And once it does, and slots it, then it's done. It's called the class tree or class method. To have a proper class method in your state takes a lot of work to make sure it works for all the classes. This is a huge source of error in our class data in the United States. Massive source of error. Many states who are using from the box, from the vendor, class trees, you have lots of errors in them. Anybody here use Peak? Right? Peak has a known error in their class tree, which you probably have already fixed, that your buses are going to be almost double the number that are in reality, for example. Okay? And I've let them know about it, but I don't know if they've actually fixed it inside the county. They have not. That's what Kentucky says.
An issue that I have is every class tree that I've looked at, if a vehicle has more than 7 axles, it just throws up its hands and says, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so you need to build your tree. So Todd says he has problems with when you get more than 7 axles, and that does happen because you do have class 13 vehicles and class 10 vehicles that can have more than 7 axles. Michigan has a lot of them. And so you need to build your class tree to handle those. Because they might be class 10 or they might be class 13s. They're not always class 13s. And most vendors will take the number of axles that you have in a vehicle and it'll just automatically assign it to a class without even trying to properly classify it. If you want details on this, we could spend probably 2 or 3 hours just on that subject. Okay? I have example class trees from a number of different states around the nation who have actually done this. Okay, so if you would like that information, we'd be happy to share it with you. And they're free. Agencies, as they've gone through what Todd has referred to, and they've sent them to me, and I have a whole collection of about 20 of them. Okay? But you need to calibrate your sites every year. That includes your volume sites, your class sites, your speed sites, and your weigh motion sites. Now you notice I threw in there the speed sites, right? You may have sites from ITS that are speed, perfectly fine to start storing the speed data in the 2022 speed format, and we are going to be receiving that at Federal Highways through TMAS in the system, okay? Speed data. We want your speed data. It's highly coveted and a very useful point of information for safety concerns is your speed data, okay? So, individual vehicle record is what's now recommended per the traffic monitoring guide. Now this is not an easy thing to do. There was a state that's heard a briefing that I gave. It was about 5 years ago, and the state said, okay. They went back to all their weigh motion sites, and they turned on individual vehicle records, and they started submitting it to their processing software company that they had. And the first thing the processing software company says, whoa, time out here. Your contract doesn't say you're giving me all these vehicle types for all of these whims. And then they were going to do the class sites too, which would be even more. And they had to rewrite the contract and add this in for them to be able to handle it. So it can be a significant more numbers of vehicles. But it's recommended both portable and permanent, all traffic counts be IVR per the TMG. That is a huge change. Okay? What I would recommend doing is start small. Nevada, where's Nevada? Nevada's been doing this for years. All vehicle types and their weight data. They've been sending it to us for years. Anybody else doing it? You should. At all your websites, that's where you should start. If you're going to do anything, do individual vehicle record of all the vehicle types at your WIMS. Why? Helps you with your axle class trees, your axle class factory. Now you can do it. So, why does Nevada do it? Why do you do it? Do you know why?
A lot of it is just we like to get as much information as possible.
Okay, so they're saying they like to get as much information as possible, and that is exactly right. As an example, somebody from the MOVES model, anybody here work with the MOVES model ever? It has all kinds of vehicle types. And they need to know different vehicle types and when they're traveling throughout your states, and they do it for emissions, for congestion mitigation air quality, CMAQ. There's a funding category for this, and you can install sites and use CMAQ money if you have CMAQ areas that are non-attainment areas for emissions. You can actually install class sites, get the class data, and use that, and use CMAQ money for installing your sites, just to let you know. And you can use it for portable too, if you were wanting to do 13 vehicle types. But anyway, the agencies were collecting this information, and the person in Ohio, when I worked there, came to me, knew I was the weigh motion person. We had 42 WIMs at the time, and they said, hey, I'd like to do an analysis to know how many diesels versus non-diesel class 3 vehicles there are. And they can look at the front axle weight of a class 3, hence all the vehicle types for WIM. And so I happen to have, my boss never asked me to do it, I just thought, golly, it's WIM data, let's turn on all vehicle records and store a couple weeks in the spring and a couple weeks in the fall. I did that for multiple years. And so this person saw this data and they're like, yeah, that's great, 2 weeks is plenty fine for me. And they ran the WIM data through this processing through Python, and they actually got the results that they wanted. So they looked at the front axle weight of class 3s to know diesel versus gas, as an example. If you don't store it, nobody ever has it. So anyway, highly coveted. There's all kinds of things you could do. If you think about binning your data, why have we binned our data for years? Why? Old timers. Talking about anybody with 20 years or more. You know why? Why have we
Space is
binned it?
expensive.
It's expensive, right? What else? Somebody else said something. Storage space, yeah. So memory. You didn't have enough memory. That's true. Yeah, expensive. What else? Baud rate, or baud rate. Remember when 9600 was a fast baud rate? It was. It truly was. Then we went to 19.2. Whoa, man, you're smoking. If you're 19.2. Now it's just a joke, okay? And then the processing of it on board your CPU, it couldn't be done. All those things are not an issue now. They don't exist. What exists is our paradigm that we're thinking, oh, I've always been the bin data, I've always done bin data, I'm going to continue doing bin data until I die or retire, right? That's the paradigm that we're stuck in. We got to get out of that. Why? If you do, and I did a TRB paper that became a manuscript for TRR with this guy named Herb Southgate, and we detailed 10 different things of IBR data that you can use. Your data is this useful the way we have it now. Just this. We're only using about 10% to 15% of our use of our data right now. Whereas we could be using 90 or 100%. Let me give you an example. Anybody here ever work in the safety realm? Anybody? Is there anybody? Take this one sentence back from Stephen. Ask your safety people just this one simple question. Would you want gap on a segment of road? Gap. Between. The gap is the distance between vehicles going down the road. Would you want that? Ask them that one simple question. I was in an office or a meeting that was about 50 people, and about a third of them were safety people. All the safety people raised their hands when I said, would you want gap? Who can give you gap? Can you get it from probe-based data? No. You can't get it from anything except what you have. You're it. And yet, we bin our data, and we throw that data away. And shame on us for doing it. We've been doing it for years. We gotta stop. IVR is the way around it. The IVR isn't perfect. There are more detailed individual records that you can do, but it's a good start. It goes to 100th of a second, so you can do gap. Now let's think about it. I'm going out and I'm doing, what's a state that has a lot of counts, portable counts? There were some numbers I wrote down, 15,000. Anybody higher than that? 15,000? Texas does all of their portable counts every year. They do 45,000 or some huge number. Every year. Amazing. So states are a lot different. Did you have a lot?
We have over 20,000.
20,000. Okay. Let's take that number. Your state may not be as many. That's okay. 20,000 counts. Instead of bidding that data, whether it's volume or class, it makes no difference. But if you just stored that data, and by the way, mini counters, time mark, Metro counter, JMAR, and even some of the peak devices do event storage. They have the details. They're bidding it because we, in our ways that we want the data, have said, give us bin data. But they have event storage. That's what they're actually collecting. So you could easily go to this. But at 20,000 counts, in Missouri's case, he can provide at every one of those counts how closely the vehicles are following behind one another, which nobody else can give the safety office. Would you think if you gave them a map with all of the gap analysis of some threshold of like, I don't know, at 45 miles per hour, maybe 10 feet spacing between vehicles, that's a little too tight. You know, probably 20 feet is too tight. But you gave them some analysis of your data, they would love it. And now you took your existing data source and you're making it that much more valuable. I'm not saying do anything different in the field as far as your equipment, your arrays, how you're doing your counts, no different. All I'm saying is store it in individual vehicle record format. And then it makes your data that much more useful. Okay? We're looking at taking, because we're really good at a point location, and this is where it goes to what Jackalope and High Desert is doing. We're really good at a point location of knowing what's going on. We produce single unit ADT and ADT and all of our different traffic statistics. But we can't tell anything that's going along the road. And that's got to change. And it will with IVR. Idaho. Where's Idaho? In Idaho, how many years have you been doing individual vehicle record data storage?
Way longer than I've been here.
Over 25 years, they've been doing individual vehicle records, portable and permanent. And I said to Margaret, when we just had a meeting, I said, hey, we're doing this research project, and in this research project, we're going to I started explaining it. I said, did you know you can do this because you do IVR? She said, I never even knew that. I didn't know I could do GAP from all of this. And she's like scribbling it down, so there's probably gonna be more work for you. But it brings more value to what we have. Now this is it, and I'm glad this is gonna be recorded, because this is my mantra. I wanna get people addicted to your data. Plain and simple. If they're addicted to their data, can they live without it? No. The last thing I want them to do is they look at your data and they say, well, that's only bin data. I can go over here and get IVR data. I don't need your data. I don't want them to do that. I want them to look at your data and say, I can't live without it, and that's job security. That's what I want them to do. So the more value I can bring to your data means that you can do more with it. Want the details of it? I'd be happy to send it to you. Just email me, and I'll send you the report I did on it. But IVR gives you all kinds of advantages. So please, I implore you, start small. At your whims, make those IVR. Then do the class sites. Then do the volume sites and the speed sites. Then go to portable. Do it. It's worth the investment.
And notify your IT department before you start.
Yeah, because now, at the WIMS, if you're storing, by the way, we had 42 WIMS. At 13 of the WIMS, we did IVR. When we did that, we actually reduced our file size. It truly did. Now, WIMS are typically mostly on high truck routes, so we already had the individual vehicle records for all the trucks. We just had to have the cars in. But we eliminated the speed, the class, and the volume file with the IVR, and it actually was smaller. Now, most volume and class and speed sites, you're gonna mushroom from 15 to 20K per day to, or per month, whatever it is that you have, to something that's more like probably a meg or more. So it's gonna be a much larger file size, okay? So I'm not saying it's not easy to do. It is difficult to do. And there could be memory storage issues, as Ian just mentioned when I was talking to him about it in Minnesota, that they can't get the memory. So there's gonna be new processing that you're going to have to do on the with the equipment, and it's not easy, okay? But the bang is worth the buck. I'm telling you, it makes your data so much more valuable, okay? It's much more useful. It turns our post-processing data. You can do all kinds of things. It gives us speed by class. Anybody have a nighttime and daytime speed differential? Anybody have that in your state? Anybody? No? If you had that, or if you have on a freeway, speed differentials between lanes, now you can have that. You can have speed by class. And it lets you re-ID the vehicles with signatures along a traffic street, which lets us connect our sites together. So you can turn your weight sites and your volume sites into weight motion sites with your re-ID vehicles. It's already proven fact that this works. We did a 250 square mile area with it. 24-hour counts can be used for 5,000 or higher counts, and you're not experiencing large changes there, okay? So if you want to go for 24-hour counts versus 48, that's fine for volume if you have low volatility, okay? That's in the TMG now.
Isn't that how Texas does count all of, that's why they're able to count
The
all
significant
of
portion of theirs are 24 hours,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. And also, something that we found out from our research, if you have more than the given, let's say you're doing a count for 48 hours, and let's say you have 50 hours, right? So the technician sets it out at 8 and then picks it up at 10 on the day when they pick it up. You actually have 50 hours. Keep the extra 2 hours. Include the extra time. It makes your counts more accurate, including partial, the more hours, okay? It's always better to include all, don't pop it off at 48, okay? Keep the extra hours. And then the vehicle summary tables, I mentioned that again, I include that more than once. Okay, so, with motorized station data, we only have piped only. This is the way we're moving in the future. It will not be a fixed format in the future. I highly doubt that the next TMG will be any fixed formats. It'll all be piped just like this. So we're moving to that with the station data, starting with that. So you could, and we have found with putting our data out on the web in a piped format, the users love it. It makes it much easier to read. And also we moved to world coordinates. So no more applied decimal, no more applied negative, all that's gone. You put the negative in, you put the decimal in, we're all good. Everybody can read it. There's no confusion on that, which this has been very ugly over the years of having people to deal with this item number 2. All motorized data can be submitted in the pipe formats, and then you can also do that for micromobility too.
I'm going to ask a dumb question. What is pipe format?
There's no dumb questions. So pipe format, that's an excellent question. So what you do is you can use different characters to break between different fields.
Also like commas.
Excuse me?
Commas, instead of
You
having.
use commas,
Oh,
yeah,
right.
you could use comma-separated variables, which is CSV, but we're using piped. Well, the reason we went with piped is because with piped, it's a character that isn't used very often in any of the description fields, right? So pipe is a very unique field, hardly anybody uses it. And we actually say in TMG, you shall not, well, there's no shalls. You should not use any pipes in any of your field descriptions when you're describing text.
You know, having an error in the 150th character of a class field is really hard to find. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, the users love it, the piped, so it's worked out really good. The IVR also allows 1/100th of a second timestamp. Is our equipment that accurate? No, but we have to put something on it, so that's good enough. And why do we go to 100th of a second? Does anybody know that? Anybody here does bridges? Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so you can differentiate between vehicles, because
Uh,
when you just go to the second, you can have on different lanes the same. It would
Yes, that's a byproduct of it, and that's great, and yes, what you're saying, Kathy, is exactly right. But the reason we did it was for the bridge people. The bridge people said we wanted 100th of a second on our weight data. It was killing them that we had it to the hour. And the bridge people are like, really? To the hour? We needed to something a lot less than an hour. So we said, well, what do you want? And they said, 100th of a second. I was like, well, that's a jump from an hour to 100th of a second, but you want it? We'll put it in there. And actually, it's gone over really well. So there's all kinds of expanded features with the restrictions column. We added a whole bunch of extra fields that you can now add. And please, agencies are not putting in dummy records for weight data. They're not putting in the volume restrictions. This is metadata about your site. This tells a researcher, listen, don't use this data. It's what represents what's really there, but we did something there that is not traditional, and don't use this for some reason. Okay, so please, use the restrictions field. That's why we've increased it. And micromobility is reported in TMAS, and that's actually recommended. So we're actually starting to just received Florida's data for 4 years inside TMAS. So, and I know Minnesota is working on it. They're working on their micromobility. Texas has a huge program for micromobility. So we're expecting some great things out of that. Here's what's going on. There's going to be a TMG course in early 2024, and there's a bunch of new group activities. The cost is still the same. If anybody has new staff, or maybe you don't want to host it, but you want to attend another one. We taught 4 of these courses this last year. We understand there's a lot of turnover in states right now with staff. I don't know why, but there is. So a bunch of people are retiring. And so, please do this. We also can offer not an NHI class, but we can actually provide individualized training, which I just did down in Arizona, literally 2 weeks ago. Gave them a couple days worth of training to go over traffic count. So if you are interested and so inclined, you can do that. Okay, so this is what we have going on. TMAS is the largest database, I believe, inside Federal Highway System. It's larger than HPMS by far. We do more processing every week, 200 to 300 jobs per week we process in TMAS. It is a massive system. And we're asking, and we're building version 3, which is the new version. We're building the new version to handle this individual vehicle records from 6,000 locations. So we're building it to be big. We understand where we are now is only about 20% of where we're going to be. We envision it to be a huge, massive system, okay? As agencies move to IVR. We have 3,200 class sites. We are looking to do a TVT-like report for class. This would be, I think, very popular. We'll be doing that. And we have 520 websites. We need WIM from all agencies. As you saw when I passed that around, there's a couple states in here who are not sending us in any week data. I will be knocking on your door. As Utah already knows, I've knocked on their door. I knocked on New Hampshire's door. I knocked on Tennessee's door. Right? Tennessee got in trouble. And we will restrict your funds. That's what will happen. It gets ugly. You don't want to go down that route. Put in some wins. Yes.
I would say to the group, I've said it to you before, but it was actually a really good message because it came through and went to leadership. They suddenly reason. It wasn't just me parking at that.
Yeah.
So,
The use of WIM data, thank you Nicholas for going over that. The use of WIM data is very valuable to federal highways, no doubt about it. But it's even, having come from a state, it's even more valuable to the states. And for a state to say, I don't need WIM data, and I'm not gonna send it to federal highways, I question to myself your traffic engineering knowledge and how you're not connecting the dots. There's some fundamental things that I'm like, how do you do axle correction factors? How are you doing pavement design? How are you doing, and there's a whole list. And we have this thing called a WIM utilization briefing that we can give to any agency if you are wondering, why do WIM? We did this briefing, so anyway. So we're at 520, we're remaining steady. These have both upticked a lot recently. This, I envisioned us going probably to 700 or 800 WIMs across the United States. Many states have moved from having, like Ohio used to have 42, now they only have 15. Many states have far fewer WIMs, but they're being careful where they put them. And they're putting in higher quality ones. And we're also getting a bunch of micro-mobility data, as you're listed here. So if you want to know what Texas is doing, they're doing some crazy, really neat things through TTI on their micro-mobility. Volume data from public websites. We have all of your volume data that's out on the web right now. We make almost no restrictions to anybody asking us for data, whether it's volume, class, or weight motion right now. Okay? We don't put it on the web yet, the class and weight data, but at some point it will be on the web, I guarantee. Okay? And we're also receiving, just to let you know, this National Park Service data from all across the United States. If you haven't noticed it already, you'll notice that there's a couple extra sites. I put in 180 sites, and why are there 5 extra sites? And we're loading it into TMAS right now. And so you'll see recreational data. You can use all data in TMAS is open to all users. We've done this to put the fear of God in you. You don't know who's going to use your data. I'm serious. When I came here in 2007, or 2006, but took over doing TMAS in 7, none of the data was open to all users. I immediately, when I became the system owner, I said, listen, we're removing that restriction. I want anybody to look at anybody else's data, because if you don't know who's going to look at it, you better make sure it's right. Okay? That's no better way than having your peers look at your data. But anyway, so that we do have permanent sites on ramps. We have special counts that get sent in. We have rest area counts that are sent in to us, and we also have recreational sites like the National Park Service. And what we don't want to do is some of these sites that aren't really travel trends in across your network. Yeah, we want them. They can come in, but we're going to actually have a list where we will exclude them from using them in certain processes inside TMAS. Okay? So it's perfectly fine to send us in that data if you have it, but we will, and you can also use, if we go back here, you can also use your restrictions field to tell us not to use it. That's another way of doing it. But if you don't do that, we are going to have this list, and we'll work with the agencies to say, listen, in your state, these are causing undue influence in certain types of roadways, and we can restrict those. How to use. Is that clear? So FLMA is a term for Federal Highways, Federal Land Management Agency. So we envision that we'll have data probably from U.S. Geological Service, Indian Lands, or Indian Affairs. There's all kinds of encounters that are out there that they have, and National Park Service is the first FLMA that we've received on a regular basis. Okay? They are in numerous states that are here. You have this data in there. So, yes?
Yeah, I just had a conversation with the commissioner in a local county 2 weeks ago, and they're working on sites in a couple of our national parks as well as Yellowstone, it sounded like to me that they had no idea what they were doing. They were coming to us, basically, how do you run a CCS program? And
yeah, so let's back up 10 years, and the National Park Service came to Federal Highways and said, hey, let's work together. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's bring it on. And they said, okay, can we have all your permanent site data? I said, sure. How many years you want? 2 years. Okay, there you go. Boom, send it to them. All right, in kind, how about you send us your recreational sites, your National Park Service data. 1 year, 2 years, 8 years later, still no data. It took 10 years before we actually got to that. And if anybody knows me, I don't let something lie. I was like a flea on a hound dog. I did not relent. And eventually, you got their data, so, yeah. But they want to know, they wanted to use the permit sites to develop factors and how to analyze data. So they want to do this. So maybe we will do a course for that. I have seen in the TNG courses in some states, they'll have FLMA agencies that attend. I've had U.S. Geological Service, National Park Service, and others attend before.
That's good. I'll
Yeah.
share that information.
Yeah. And they're more than welcome to attend. There's no reason not to. Here's where all your sites look. Thank you for all of your work you've done. This isn't us doing it, it's you. You have actually provided us that long data across the United States, and it looks awesome. I mean, this is so useful for where your sites are in the United States. We don't have it for the different data types yet, but we will be doing that soon. Anybody use this map ever? Okay, and you can use it, so, yeah, because with your factoring that you've done, so Delaware, Luis said so he'll zoom in here to his, and he can look and see where other states have traffic counting devices, and they can actually use those devices for your factoring process. And this is a big one, and there's no reason or no rule that says the sites that you use for your factoring process or whatever else you're doing has to be within your jurisdictional borders. There's no rule that says that that's the case. So yes, Delaware can use Maryland's sites. Maryland can use Pennsylvania's sites. Utah can use Wyoming's sites. No problem at all. There's no reason. Okay?
Yeah, when we used it, I found sites in Maryland and New Jersey that are closely related to sites that, that were down for us.
Yep.
That's why we ended up using those.
So you can use the sites to confirm if you see an unusual travel trend. Hey, use your neighbors, and you can, inside TMAS, all data is open to all users. All reports, you're all level 3 users inside TMAS. You can do reports on any traffic counting site in the United States in there. Okay? And the map is here to show you, hey, this is where your neighboring sites are. I had a site in Michigan, I could throw a rock and hit their cabinet. Not that I ever did, but I could. But we never shared our weight data and their weight data together. We both had wins on either side within like 50 feet of each other. Crazy. But we never did. But, some agencies are starting to do that. Any questions on that?
Well, the problem is that if you have one watch, you know what time it is, but if you have two, you're never sure. So if you have one whim, you know what the traffic looks like, but if there's another whim right across the street, then you don't know.
Now what we're hoping to do with signatures is to tie that data together, and you can not have just 2, but maybe have 5 WIM sites, and that truck or the vehicle went from this WIM to this WIM to this WIM to the class site to WIM to a volume site, and at all those locations now I can tell you that vehicle, and now you can turn a volume site into a WIM. It's really going to be cool as we move forward. If anyone wants details on that, let me know. All right, so the new FHWA formula is what is recommended. It's more accurate than the AASHTO formula, and it allows for, it corrects for a downward bias that we know exists in the AASHTO formula. It's also more flexible, allows partial day data. So if you have 1 minute, 5 minute, 15 minute, I don't care what time increment you want to use, it'll work with it. Okay, this new formula. Okay, if you want examples of it, we actually gave to High Desert, and we gave to all 4 of the processing vendors examples of how this formula works, so they can check it. So it's what's recommended. TMAS 3.0 is moving to the FHWA formula. We're dropping the AASHTO formula. Okay, we're going to go to partial day data as an example. Is now acceptable in version 3. IVR processing. There's no file size limit. For anybody uploading multiple batches, now we can only upload 1 data type at a time, but there's no reason to take your WIMs and break them down into 3 or 4 batches. You can put them all in one, okay? Upload. No file size limits at all in TMAS 2.8 or 3.0. GIS enabled viewing, we're gonna have maps available in there, and all of our QC is in the appendix B. And then there's new QC, so there's a bunch of new QC. And if we have time later on today, or maybe at lunch, I'll maybe go through those. All right, keep on going here. Speed data, bunch of new checks that we're doing. If anybody wants to flow diagrams and descriptions of what this is all in Appendix B. Okay, offering a bunch of new checks. IVR. Many of these checks are similar to what we do in weight data, but again, we have the new checks that we're adding. We're looking at the gap between vehicles. A great troubleshooting tool with individual vehicle record data is a 1 following a 6 at about an 18-foot distance, 18 to 25-foot distance. It's an excellent troubleshooting tool, but you have to do IVR to do it. Yeah. That's what happens is the loop detunes here
Split.
causes this a 6 and causes this to be a 1. And you'll have a 1 that weighs like 10,000 pounds. You laugh about it, but it's actually, if you had IVR data, that's an excellent troubleshooting tool that we're gonna be looking
It's what we get with double trailers is that we'll get a class 9.
Yep.
And then a 4-axle
Okay.
8 with 2 front axles.
at. Yep. Yeah. All these things you can do with IVR. Anyway, the design hour for percent single unit and percent combination unit. Are you doing this now with your permanent sites in Jackalope? Are you? You should be. Should not be from portable counts anymore. Both of these values come from permanent sites now, not from portable like they used to be. That's a change in H3MS. That's a shall. Any questions on that? If you don't know how to do it, don't worry. Do it the way you're doing K's and D's right now. Use those. That's the best thing to do. You already have your factors for K's and D's, how they go from permanent and get assigned to your samples, right? Use that same method for these, for your design hours. Okay? This is a change in guidance that is in H3MS. It wasn't our office that changed it, it was H3MS. It's how the data in H3MS gets used in a thing called the HERS model, which is for a huge report that goes to Congress every year. Okay? So these are changed. Not from portable devices anymore. Don't do that anymore. It was easy, it was good data, but it's not the way the model needs to be run.
Is that a field that is recorded?
Yes.
Design hour, like an hour?
It used to be percent peak.
Okay.
You would heard it as percent peak, now
Yeah.
it's called design hour. Changed.
And you don't, if someone counts a class short-term site, you don't want its design hour, you want it to use,
You don't have the design hour. The design hour comes from 8,000 hours in the year. You don't know what it is, that's the
so
problem.
you don't consider it the highest hour of short-term use.
No, ma'am. Yeah, used to be. That was the past. HPMS changed this. Any questions on that? This is a big change. Not easy to implement. So keep it simple. Use your K&D methods first. Hopefully Jackalope has already implemented this. Because the HPMS has been talking for this about 2 years. Portable, 24-hour portable counts are permitted on 5,000 roads or higher and with low expected changes, okay? All right, keep on going. Count source metadata is now required. The year of the count is now required. Okay? When the count was actually performed, not when it was factored for, because it would be factored for the current year. So it's when it was actually obtained. HPMS is a potential Meyer data source in use. Could be. We've been told there might be. Don't know how that's going to work out. Meyer's looking at, wow, we're going to have the need to have ADTs on across where can you put it? And HPMS is about the only place you can put it. Safety Office doesn't know. And if I haven't said it enough, please VMT weight your summary table. If you haven't heard that, that's the third time I'm mentioning it. And 48-hour is still required for all samples and for the class counts. Okay? So you can't do less than 48 hours yet. We might do research that shows it is okay, but right now we don't have the answer. Hence, the 3,000 plus permanent sites that we can use to do that kind of analysis. It was the 6,000 locations that we used over 14 years to figure out that we could do this, which is the 24-hour. That's where we came up with that. We actually had Mark Hollenbach look at our results, and he said, yeah, we should have allowed the 24 hours way back then. So he was the one who confirmed it for us, because he did the original analysis. What they found out was that the counts that are Monday through Thursday that we typically do portably are very consistent. And you don't need to have more hours, doesn't make it more accurate. It's very little accuracy increase because of the counts being during the same time. We don't know that with class data. All right, HPMS updates. There's new methods for checking. Shoeking's going to go over that. There's GIS. We'll do GIS reviews on an ad needed basis. I won't be doing all the nation GIS reviews anymore. State to state, I gotta say, it looks awesome. When I've done the checks, your data between states is really good. If you're not coordinating with your surrounding states, please do. But the single unit combination are not as consistent between states. They need to be improved. All right, so a bunch of pooled funds. If you need help with implementing pro-based data, if you're interested in doing it in some way, we're doing Montana right now. If your state wants help with analysis, let's say you're looking at maybe getting different vendors and you want to compare them, we'd be happy to do it. You just have to supply us the data and we'll do the analysis. If you want, if you have a problem with conflation, if you have a problem with whatever it is with pro-based data, maybe writing the contract. You don't know how to even write the contract to get the data. We can help you with that. Okay? Whatever it is, we have a contractor on call. Right now, the only one using it is Montana. There's another state that's considering it, but right now it's just Montana. And they're not even a tax state, it's a pool fund. But it's okay, it's for anybody. All right? So if you need assistance, let us know. We'd be happy to help. And there's no cost to you, it's free. We have this updated guidance that's coming and on this pool fund, and I think it's going to be helpful. Were either of you involved with online? No? Okay. Anybody here attend any of the TAC meetings that we did? There's a couple of TAC states in here. Okay. Anyway, bunch of new guidance on this. So I'm excited about this one. I'm actually leading this one on the signatures. I actually gave a briefing to the FMCSA leadership, not wanting money. I just gave them a briefing. I said, hey, listen, we got this cool data where we're going to be able to tell trucks as they're going down the road when they stop, and whether they're staying on the road or not, and how long they've been on the road. And would you want the data? And they're like, yeah, we want the data. And they said, hey, you want some money? And I said, well, yeah, sure. Pool fund contributions, $50,000 or $30,000 on this. And they said, no. We'll give you $200,000. Here you go. That's what they did. So they kicked in $200,000 to this. So my boss and I went to the, it's like Shark Tank, right? Tinja and I went before Shark Tank, Federal Highways version, and we gave our pitch for this pool fund. It's called Accelerated Market Research. And we asked for $480,000, and we had 4 thumbs up, and we got $500,000 they gave us for this. So they gave us, so there's funding available. Anyway, bunch of states. Oregon, where's Oregon? Oh, I'm sorry, Wisconsin. Sorry, you guys just joined last night. I noticed it online. Latest people. So Wisconsin is now in the list. I did the modification. So yeah, and, so you can still join. We're going to be kicking off. I wrote the draft statement of work, gave it to my boss a few weeks ago. He's reviewing it now. We're going to start this in early 2024. What we're looking at doing is major corridors across the United States. Can we re-identify vehicles, and can we link sites together and provide, instead of point-based data, now link-based data? That's what we're looking at doing. Okay? We need IVR data at all these locations to do this. We'll be doing. If you don't have sites and you want to install some sites, signature-wise, we will be installing them for you. Okay? So this is a great way of getting some sites and trying it out if you want to. This is what's really cool about signatures. It's not perfect. You can't tell drop axis. That's a big deal. You can't tell drop axis yet. I've been told that they're thinking they can get it, but I don't think it's going to be possible. But with signatures, we can uniquely classify 100 types of vehicles right now. So RVs pulling trailers. Who classifies that right? Nobody does. Signatures, no problem. Nails it. Intermodal vehicles. You can tell that. Dry good, wet good. Reefer trucks. Lowboys. All those different kinds of vehicles, no problem at all. Trace. 2 in the front, 1 in the rear. 1 in the front, 2 in the rear. Smart cars. We confuse them all the time at our 2 road tubes. Signatures, no problem. It's a much better data from what I can see. And this is the beautiful part. You only need 1 loop in each lane. That's it. No piezo's are needed. None. Loops last 30 years. So you're essentially saying it's a non-intrusive. Even though it's intrusive, you put it in 30 years, 40 years, I mean, we had loops in Ohio at 40 years old. No problem at all. So that's what I think is great. And you can link your sites together and get travel back. And this is where I think we're in my opinion, we really need to go. The data that is available through this pool fund will allow us to now provide link-based information, origin and destination of the travel patterns of different vehicle types. Can you imagine 100 different vehicle types we have, right? And I can tell you where they went on the road. I can tell you if they went north, left, or right. I can tell you that right now. We already proved this in a 250 square mile area in Southern California when we did this test. And I can show you the results. Now, you're not re-IDing all the vehicles. There's vehicles that get on that go across a loop that I haven't already had go across another set of sensors. They just got on. Okay, that happens. You know, you're gonna have vehicles entering and exiting. That's what our ramps and interchanges do for us. They provide mobility to people and goods. And so, you know, it's not perfect, but we can uniquely re-ID a whole bunch, like 50 to 70% of the trucks we can re-ID along traffic streams. And that's enough to re-ID for you to actually transfer and turn a volume site into a WIM site, which in a traffic world, that is huge. I mean, you've just made that volume site into a much more valuable location because now you have weights and spacings, and pavement design people will eat up that stuff. Because now instead of level 3 pavement design, you have level 1 pavement design from the mechanistic empirical pavement design. Okay, so it takes all of our sites and makes them extremely more useful. So I think this is the way to go. Now there are other attributes, like Michigan just did a study. It's in TRB now, where they're looking at attributes of axle spacings and vehicle length and the classes of vehicles to re-identify vehicles. That also can be done. It doesn't have to be done with loops. There's license plate readers, there's Bluetooth, there's a bunch of technologies that allow you to re-identify vehicles. There's no PII involved with this. There's no privacy issues. We know that it's a signature of a very unique vehicle that went down the road. Do people know, when I say signature, do you know what I'm talking about or not? Yes, no? Does anybody need to know what a signature looks like? Anybody?
No.
Oh, a couple of you. Okay, let me draw you a picture. So, in each vehicle, like let's say you had a Class 9 vehicle like this going down the road, right? If you had a car going down the road, it would have a signature like this. If you had a Class 9 going down the road, it would have a waveform like this. Something like that. I don't know. You know, it's all dependent on the metal that's underneath here and how it detects it. But it's going to have different bumps for these different axles and different things that it detects. Okay. So when it goes across a 6x6 loop, it looks like this. When it goes across a 6x8 loop, when it goes across a round loop, it looks like this. It looks like this all the time. It's a vehicle signature. When here I get a signature at one location, and then I 50 miles later I get the same signature, and you can literally line it up, and it looks exactly the same. It's like a vehicle. It's like your signature. It's unique. Okay. And so it's truly amazing way of. But we can now. We have in the signatures, we have 1,950 signatures in the library. I expect this, when we fully implement this across the United States, to have over 3,000. And we can uniquely classify 100 vehicles.
No, I've talked to Wavetronics about doing this with a radar instead of with a loop. And they don't seem very interested, but I think that it would.
I don't think radar can do it. Magnetometers can.
Well, you know, the radars, the military can use it, because we used to identify ships by their radar return. The P3s did it.
I'm not aware of that.
So I think that if they put height on a radar, it would really help us figure out if it's a.
Mine. I'm not opposed to that. I do know magnetometers can give.
Magnetometers are better. They're closer.
Okay, anyway, so if anybody needs to know more about this, let me know. But thank you for those states. I see there's a bunch of states here. Minnesota's in here, Kentucky is in here, Idaho. There's a bunch of states that are already joined in, so thank you. And Wisconsin, so Wyoming. Delaware, yes. So thank you. All right, so Patrick Zong's doing an origin destination, and they're looking at, there's 25 agencies, and they're looking at getting origin destination data. There's an SBIR on called Edge Computing Fusion, and they're looking at traffic monitoring and road conditions and obtaining that. So if you want to know more information, you can contact Patrick on that. And then I'm involved with Dennis O'Shea with his bridge office. We're doing a portable bridge weighing device through this company called ConnectWise. We just are starting literally next week, like phase 2 on it. So we're looking at doing that. There's a National Bikeway. We have now 30 plus agencies that we scoured. We had all of our summer students do this across the United States. And so we have that now. There's 2 formats available. If you have Bikeway data, GIS data, please send it to us. We would welcome it. And there's a huge need from the Office of Secretary for bike and ped data, both the counts and the network. There's a huge need for this. So if you want to know more information, I'm the lead person on that for Federal Highways. And this is all done through Oak Ridge National Lab, as you can see from the website. This is done off-site. So, okay, there's a bunch of uses of the data that you may not be aware of. Did you know that all of your weight and class data goes out to this tool called the data tool? And it's for the moves model and noise analysis. It's a national data set of all of the class and volume data in the United States that you can use for noise and the moves model analysis. HVMS and TMAS data are now used part of the freight analysis framework to calibrate the model. You have a WIM that has 365 days worth of data, or most of the year. And that data is how much weight actually went across it, right? We're measuring GVW for all the vehicles. Hey, golly, why model it over that section of road? I can tell you what the real answer is. So now they're using the WIM data from the 500 plus WIM sites to calibrate the freight analysis framework to improve the model. So at those actual WIM locations, we know the real answer when you have a significant number of days in the year. The use of the data is for bridges. IVR data and WIM data is used extensively in bridges. It's now being used for enforcement for the first time in the United States. WIM for enforcement in New York City. They're doing it right now. They're actually issuing citations, warnings right now in New York from August through November, and then citations start in January in New York City. We're going to have a workshop detailing what New York is doing and others in November. So if you're interested in this, email me. Registration is required for this one. We just did a TRB workshop on WIM and permit data for TRB last year. And then there's the COP report. So this is, from Federal Highways perspective, your data is used all over the place. It's amazing. So, all right, new sensors. Video class. If you have not looked into video class, you need to. This is, numerous states are using video class, permanent and portable now. It has come a long way. It used to be very inaccurate. It used to have all kinds of issues. Not a problem anymore. Most video, we have perfected the pixel outcome quality. Video does a really good job. I saw this New York City demo, and it was a near whiteout, and it was still classic vehicles at night. I was like, wow, that's impressive. There's sci-fi radar devices that are used. Connecticut is using it extensively. Connecticut doesn't do anything on the road anymore. They do it all with sci-fi radar. And there's an intersection count that people are using called the grid system, and there's numerous other systems. There's like 4 or 5 different systems, but numerous states are looking at intersection counts and harvesting those for the legs of each one of the intersections. So, okay. And your speed is signs, I think, you can use a loop or magnetometer for signatures, and we have over 1,900 vehicles, so this is the research we're doing. Your speed is signs, we looked at this nationally. About half the devices were accurate enough, about half of them were not. Don't know why, but for our pro-based, that was a data source we looked at. I would highly suggest if you have these devices in cities, get a hold of them. The people who install these things could care less about the traffic counts. They don't put them in for traffic counts. They put them in for getting the traffic calming. They want you to slow down, right? But all of these, there's about 7 vendors that have your speed is that are in the United States. Only one you can get the data from. All the rest, it's in the counter, and the local agency has them. So it's just a matter of, you probably would have to go out there, make sure the device is working right? Do a count there and make sure it's accurate. If it is, which we found half of your speed signs will be, test them in numerous different states, were accurate. And then have an agreement where you just download their data. And now you're talking a functional class 6 or 5 road is where they usually put these things. And now you have a permanent counter. All you have to do is make a phone call and say, hey, can we download your data? Can I have it once a year? And boom, feed that in the jackalope, you're all set. Because they store it in hourly increments.
I believe Minnesota is doing that.
Oh, you are?
We checked into it. I don't know, I can't remember.
I think Ian was using
Yeah.
some.
I think it's a great data source. You have to make sure it's working right. Because there could be branches and there could be different reasons why it doesn't work right. But this is, in my opinion, this is the way to go. If you want local functional class 6 roads without having to install them. And it's low hanging fruit. All you have to do is make sure it works right for you. Okay? Anyway, lower functional counts are needed for the model inventory roadway element. And we're looking at doing some portable way motion research. There's an NCHRP study now, National Cooperative Highway Research Program, is doing research on it. But we would like to, I think there's a huge need in the United States for us to have a decent portable WIM system where you get in, collect it, and you leave. And we've got to have that. We don't. Any questions? If anybody, any of these subjects, I can talk for like an hour or more. All right, that's me. So sorry, but I'm over my time.